Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 194 of the podcast. In this episode, I talk with Justin Knowles, who leads student ministry at Sandals Church. So last week we had Jeremy O'Neill on, and he leads children's ministry there at Sandals Church. And we recorded that interview a while ago. Well, Justin and I recorded this one just a week or two ago. And what we talk about is student ministry pivots and change during COVID-19. So what did it look like at Sandals Church when Justin joined that team about 9 months ago? And then how much has changed with COVID? So you're going to love this conversation. I think it's really, really helpful. It's great to hear the ideas that they've tried to put in place, the things that worked, the things that didn't, and all that. And you can get all the links and notes and all that at nickblevins.com/episode 194. I want to thank ServeHQ, our podcast sponsor for this episode. They create two software tools that churches use. One is Trained Up, which we've talked about a lot here on the podcast long before they were ever a sponsor. And the second is Huddle Up, which is a communication tool that allows churches to replace kind of how you use Facebook groups and MailChimp and maybe Remind or Slack and just all these different tools that you use to communicate through different channels and mediums. Huddle Up is a central hub for comms with volunteers, parents, students. And my favorite part about it is the safety and the accountability that's built into the design. That way, people can see what is being communicated, whether it's you communicating with your team, your leaders and volunteers communicating with students or parents or whatever that might be. There's a lot of accountability there, and certainly that is a good thing, and we need more of that in the church for sure. So functionally allows you to send emails and text while also having ongoing chats, and you can find out more about that at nickblevins.com/huddleup. All right, without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Justin about student ministry pivots during COVID-19. Well, we have Justin Knowles back on the podcast. Welcome, Justin.
Yo, thanks, man. It's been a little bit.
It has like 3 years. I had to go back and look. You were year one on the podcast, which feels like a decade ago now, but it's been 3 years.
That's a good stint. That's like a good stint. 3 years that your podcast has been around. They say most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes.
I've heard that. I can see why with the work you got to put into it. This.
It's a lot. I know we're coming up on 70 on the Youth Ministry Hacks podcast, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so the first year, I was probably really good about not missing a week. And then I want to say it was Christmas that next year, that fell apart. And then there's been multiple times since then that I've missed weeks. So no longer does like the date on the calendar match the number of episodes. You know what I mean? Like You can't do the math on that for me anymore. But it's been, I guess it's over 3 years, close to 4, because you were over 3 years ago. And a lot has changed since we last spoke for you, tons of stuff. So if anybody's familiar with you, kind of introduce yourself. But for those that are, give us an update since we last spoke.
Justin Knowles. I work at a church in Southern California, Sandals Church. That's one change since the last time that we chatted. I've been here coming up. July will be a year for me at the time of the recording, which is in May. And it's been really, really good. I get to oversee the youth ministry across 11 campuses at our church, and get to work with some great youth pastors and put on a program. And we do Wednesday nights, midweek, small groups, the whole bit. And they're a great, great team. Sandals is a great church. Love being there. I can't imagine being anywhere else right now during this whole pandemic situation. Like, it's been really incredible to see our leadership lead. And I'm really grateful that I'm there and not where I was. Not that it was bad, but I'm just like, I can't imagine being anywhere else because I have loved everything that they've been doing. And so, that's a big change. Had a kid, 6 months old now, which you could pray for me for being, working from home in California with a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. Dear Jesus.
Yes.
And, so
I amen that prayer for sure. We have a 7, a 4, and a 19-month-old. And right now, the 19-month-old is sleeping, and that is the best time of the day, productivity-wise, but it's only 2 hours. Yep. So, that's how
everything's in there for that.
I can't imagine 3 and 6 months.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's been really interesting to navigate through all this stuff. But it's been a good thing. And I do a lot of stuff with Download Youth Ministry right on their blog. I have a podcast called Youth Ministry Hacks. That's part of the the DYM podcast network. So a little bit of stuff everywhere. I feel.
So I have to ask, I actually just asked this of Gerald Fadiomi when we were just recorded, because he's got twin girls that are now 10 weeks old. But your youngest is 6 months, sleeping through the night. What's the length of time there? And what's the most hours you get in a night?
Well, if we want to recap, just even going off last night, the 6-month-old wakes up every couple hours. I'm a deep sleeper, so I don't really wake up. My wife is a champ and champions that. But my son, my 3-year-old, the older son, is now in the stint of like waking up. Like he knows how to climb out of his crib. And so he used to just go back to sleep because he couldn't get out. But now that he knows he could get out, he wakes up. So he was up at 3 o'clock this morning.
Ooh.
Tapping my forehead, Dad. And I'm like, oh no, buddy. And so, so that's a new thing. It's happened the last 4 nights. So I've been up at 3:30, ended up falling asleep 2 out of the last 4 nights on his floor because we were both like, he just wanted someone to be in there.
Yeah. And
so that's that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't, all our kids were 3 years apart, roughly, not exactly. But, and you're close, you're like 2.5 years apart. So we had some of that, but it was usually mostly about the youngest one that was not sleeping, and even now, like our whole work day, our kids, even though they're only 4 and 7, the older two, it's mostly about Paige, our youngest, because she's 19 months old, and it's not like, hey, I need to do a call. Can you entertain yourself for an hour? Like, yeah, good luck with that. Who knows what
they don't stop.
What happened there? So yeah, lot has changed. You got, I guess, 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, something at Sandals before this hit. So you didn't even get a long stretch there. But I'd love to ask about what student ministry was like there at Sandals, the model in a sense. Maybe you can just give us a rundown of pre-COVID. What was a normal week? Like, what was kind of the strategy, the structure of student ministry at Sandals? Yeah,
for sure. So we did, like I said, 11 campuses, and it's kind of like a franchise-ish model where all the campuses look and feel the same. But I mean, you're talking about, you have, campuses, like adult attendance from like 300 people at a campus to 6,000 people at a campus. So you have 15 kids on a Wednesday night, or you have 350 kids on a Wednesday night. And so we have, our model is kind of like franchise, where it looks and feels the same in a lot of areas, but then it also doesn't in a lot of areas, depending on what the campus is and how big it is and what the context is. And so we would meet Wednesday nights. We would do like typical order of service for us. We didn't have worship. It was mostly based around small groups is what it was. And so we would do like a welcome, we'd do a quick game. The youth leads at every campus would set up a video teaching. We did it all, like most of the teaching was done via video that we would record ahead of time. We basically package up the entire series, put it in a big old like Google Drive. Everyone has access to it. And so there's a couple like centralized things that we would do across the campuses. They'd set it up, like 7 minutes setup of the video of them teaching. The main biblical teaching was on video, and then a 7-minute like closer and set up to small groups. That was kind of like the normal structure when it comes to like the service itself. And it seemed to work really well. Before all this stuff we were like on usually at the time of the year when we would see like a big downturn, because it was right before like Christmas break, we were actually seeing like a huge upswing. And I think that's just a combination of, the vision and the direction that we set once I got there, and was like, kind of was able to visit every campus, see what we got going on, evaluate, and then, okay, here's what we're doing. And then we started to see like a lot of momentum that came from that. And it was really cool to see. And then all this happened, the COVID stuff. Yeah. And then so now we had to like pivot really hard. So that's on a Wednesday night, that's what we would do. We kind of run the franchise kind of butt model where it's video teaching. You have like every campus has pretty much the same order of service. Just what you do within that is different. It has the same like playlist on beforehand. The volunteer process is the same on how we onboard everybody. Same series across the board, all that kind of stuff. Same summer camp. There's certain things that everybody did, and then there's also freedom to allow the youth lead at every campus to lead how they lead within the system that I have structured and set up.
Yeah.
Within that. So there's like guardrails.
Yeah.
They're kind of like have to stay between.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your church multi-site model seems like it leans a little more towards, like you said, the franchise model. It's not like, hey, everybody kind of gets a lot of freedom and let me just help you. It's more like, a lot of it is defined and the same. And then there's still some area for them to decide. Now, did small groups meet on Wednesday night right after that large group? For middle school and high school?
Yeah, I went directly into it. So that's like, I think our church grew a little bit too fast back in the day to where like their worship was never a part of Wednesday nights. Maybe back before when there was not multiple campuses, maybe just one, but they're even on the weekends, I think still like trying to catch up and kind of get a full band across every campus because how it just exploded. Like, I mean, they launched like 4 campuses in a year, like 2 years ago.
Makes sense. I don't remember Sandals being 11 campuses, and I interviewed the children's pastor there on your team. Haven't posted that one yet, so people will probably hear this one first. But I remember thinking, man, 11, that seems like a lot more, but that makes sense. They've grown it a lot in the last number of years. Yeah,
and so small groups where we would basically go straight from the main teaching into like age and gender specific small groups because we meet 7th to 12th grade, some 6th to 12th grade, depending on the school district that the campus was in. And so that's where they would break out and kind of have their own age individual groups.
Yeah. Now on the weekends, then they're in service, maybe serving, right? There's not something else on Sundays or whenever you'd have services, right?
Yeah. Our biggest thing, the only campus that has something specifically for students is like the broadcast campus, the biggest campus for middle school only during the last service on Saturday night and the last service on Sunday. And that's just because that campus is so big, they want to try to create smaller moments for people to connect. And so they have like a middle school service there to make those connections, ultimately to push them to Wednesday nights. But we value highly that we want students to attend church because we want them to know our pastor. And, granted, we have an advantage because our pastor, Pastor Matt Brown, is relevant. He is, our students connect with him really well. He's a great teacher. He acknowledges them all the time in service. And so that's helpful. And then we want them to serve on the weekends if we could get them to do so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so that was your model pre, COVID, and then you had to pivot and make some changes. So, and now we're, 3 months in almost. So tell me, like, what are some of the things you changed? What's been working? What hasn't with some of that?
Yeah. So the biggest change has been for me, kind of, I mentioned to you before we started recording, is like, I was the guy overseeing and running and casting the vision and setting direction for 11 people who were putting on program at their campuses. And then when we switched and pivoted to all online to basically one campus, I became the main programmer and decider of like what we're doing, what kind of stuff we're going to be putting in the service. And so, we've done online services now for the past 11 weeks, and we do it a lot. Like the cool thing about it is that our entire church has done something every day. There's something happening on our live, like sandalschurch.tv. So it's like Mondays is like Thank God for Mondays. Tuesdays is like our pastor has a podcast called the Debrief Podcast where they debrief the weekend sermon and people do Q&A. And so he like does that. Wednesday is kids and youth. Thursday is like real talk, I think what it is, and they bring different people on. Fridays is like binge worthy or binge better. And so it's like old sermons, and then Saturday and Sundays at the weekend. So there's something happening all the time. And so we have the platform of the entire church to record and to broadcast our online services for youth, which has been great. And same thing, like we've been doing that on our .tv, YouTube, and Facebook. It all goes out on the same thing. And I'm very thankful.
Do you actually use the same exact thing that weekend services are using?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we have, that's like the cool part is we've had the full backing of tech, of broadcast, of equipment of the entire church to put on the online services, which would not have been able to happen if I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I don't have any of that stuff. And so really thankful for that opportunity.
And you did that. Did you do that right away? Like you got that up and running in a week, basically?
They literally built an in-house studio in 4 hours. The moment that they closed the churches, they had a studio up and ready to go. And that
Wow.
next week we went live.
That's cool.
That's
awesome.
like, and so we went live a couple weeks, and then we actually switched to pre-recorded. And so like what they would call like simulated live, which I like better personally.
Sure. Yeah, we do that. I mean, our main service has been that from the beginning. What were the reasons for that?
For the pre-recorded?
Yeah, for making that switch. I mean, you say you like it better, but I don't know that many people are doing truly live for student ministry, but I'd love to hear, what made you make the switch?
I think for me, I just think that live. Here's the deal. So Josh Griffin, because from Mariners, they do it live every week, and we went to coffee last week. Socially distance, okay, everybody, just calm down. And
we're reporting you right now.
Yeah,
to somebody.
California people would, all the Karens would definitely. And so we were like talking about, he loves live, and like loves the spontaneity of it, loves like the live chat, and the interactive piece of that. I lean more on when it comes online, the higher production value. You could do a little bit more. We did a lot of we would do film stuff beforehand that we would be able to play as like commercials, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like a fun bit that we could like switch the set over really quick. So that way when the video's over, it is like a new set basically. Or we pre-recorded worship that we could input it in there, and kind of, it just allowed for a little bit more like production value and a little bit more planned in that sense. And maybe just because we have so many campuses, it just felt better and easier, it felt more beneficial to do it that way. Simulated live instead of actual live.
Yeah, I think most leaders I talk to in youth ministry, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Is simulated live. I don't know a ton doing actual live. So Mariners is still doing it actually live. Yeah, every week. That's cool. Now, did you guys so you did that right away, and then let me ask about engagement. Like, how have you measured it? And then what has the trend been, in the 11 weeks or whatever it's been?
Definitely down. Like as the weeks have, and I would say for us, like I would say only within the last 2 weeks have we really seen like, you always hear the Zoom exhaustion. Like, I think that's just the real thing. I think every youth pastor that I've talked to that's done digital small groups they felt that. For whatever reason. And I feel it. I mean, shoot, I do podcasts too. And so doing a video, that's normal, but to have every meeting via video is way more taxing and tiring than I thought it would be, even as an adult. So I can't imagine as like a teenager who has to do that and being on school all day online and then going to online to do groups as well. And so at first, like from what I understand, from what I get, besides the weekend services, our youth program on Wednesday nights has been really consistent. It's actually like doubled or even tripled our normal reach of like what our Wednesday night would be. Our viewership has been like high, but it's a small group participation that will like started to wane over the last couple of weeks for us. And we do it over Zoom or FaceTime or House Party or whatever app the leaders wanted to do, depending on what each campus wanted to go for. And we would actually, we normally would we have like church community builder, CCB, for it, where we'd normally have an email sent out to all the leaders and they kind of check in, all that stuff. But we've been doing that, plus we made our own little survey thing to it, to where you could go and like, hey, it's just a quick little, hey, what group are you at? What campus are you at? How many students did you have? Did you have any new students, and any notes or stories from tonight that we have leaders? And that's how we've been kind of tracking it, kind of like a real up-to-date week by week thing. And so we're able to capture all of that into one, with all the campuses, and to be able to kind of say, hey, leads at every campus, go tomorrow after the service, go back and follow up with all the people who you do not see on your list, who you know that meet. And so that way we can make sure, like, I know that we have, 86 small groups across all of our campuses, and we only have 60 reported. And so I could go back and go look and go, hey, you're missing 3, you're missing 2, you're missing 5, whatever. And so we're able to kind of really be on it. Because like, that's like the hardest part. right? Like you need, in order to know how to pivot hard, you have to know where you stand.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it
And
working?
So like,
Who knows?
the metrics need to be accurate in order for you to make like a real accurate decision.
Yeah. And like with groups, you get better information too, because views on the main, your main service stream, it's hard to know who those views are.
Yep.
And especially in your case, you're using the same channel as the rest of the service. But groups, like if you're doing these digital groups, I mean, you know who's there, who's not. Our when I talk with leaders, I felt like so many, whether it was like, I don't know, because again, the live stream, you can only measure views, but if they were doing some type of digital groups, most of the youth leaders I've talked to, the engagement would have been like a third to 2/3 at best of what it was in person.
Yeah.
And
our goal,
off.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Now, I was going to say, we started off pretty strong, and then it definitely dipped after Easter, and then it has now settled. Now we'll see what summer holds. We're going to keep going through summer. It's settled, but it is like 2/3, so.
Yeah. I think we're about there too. Our goal across the board has been get to 75%. Like, I feel like if we could get to 75% and stick at that until we get back to meeting normally, then I feel like that's a good enough amount to keep momentum rolling. Where basically that's like our core. Have been stuck with us through it, and then and once we get back to meeting, then they rally the rest. And so that's just it's a hard, that's a freaking uphill battle to go, because it's definitely, like I said, the last 2 weeks for us we've been seeing like students are just like, especially summer, and places are starting to open, like the beaches are starting to open up now, and so people are going to be there. Sit in front of a screen or go outside. Right now, it's outside, like 100%.
Yeah, we the other thing my student pastor has talked about too is just how many students are not in groups. They'll be on there on video, but if there's any part that is like, because we've done some Zoom stuff all together, and like they'll be muted video, so who knows, how much they're paying attention. I've heard other churches that have done similar things. You're doing a live stream that's running through a different thing, having them watch that, and then they show up separately on their groups and probably at a certain time or whatever, so the two aren't connected. But 75% would be, I think, great. I don't hear that a lot. I'm getting a lot of thirds, half,
Yeah, I feel like right now, the last 2 weeks probably been 50. And so up until then, like we're probably running around 65%. And then, we're about to take a 2-week break to kind of give leaders and students just a stop. Yeah. And then we're going to pick it up hard again for like a series that we're going to do, and then try to make people miss it. You know what I mean? Like take it away, so that way they go, oh yeah, I missed that. And then,
I wish
or it's going to be really bad and no one's going to come back because,
well, we already went through a little stint of that, because what was Mother's Day? We didn't meet Mother's Day, came back. It actually was better. Not much, but like 3% better. And then, and then we were off again last week, right? Memorial Day. So we'll see what this weekend holds. And so, we'll skip Father's Day. So like, we don't have any planned breaks other than those holidays, but like Easter was one for us where it dropped after that for sure. Both with kids too. I mean, our kids content isn't live groups or whatever, but the views of that after Easter took a dive. And I've heard a lot of leaders saying the same kind of thing, that it was up and doing well, but then sometime after Easter, things have slid. So, what about anything else you're doing in this time, to connect with students, lead students, connect with leaders, that you weren't doing before?
Yeah, I think the campuses before service, they've been doing like these pre-service hangs according to campuses, and those have been pretty well attended. It's getting them to watch the service and then stick around for small groups afterwards. That's like the hard part. I think this has really forced us to really up so like we're going to be in the middle of we're in the middle of a rebrand across like for like our look and feel of what our ministry is going to be. Might as well, like our thought is, you know what, when we're going to come back, we're going to come back to a brand new look and get students excited about that new, merch and all that kind of stuff, build some momentum around that. We've really, I've been kind of running social media. I think that's a really big deal for student ministry, and have this, we have like a youth residency program, and the girl that's on it right now is just incredible at it. and I've fully given that over to her. That's kind of a big deal for me. That's always been my baby of like social media. And she's freaking killing it and is leading the rebrand and kind of has that kind of momentum and vibe. So she's taken that on, and like kind of working with some of our other youth leads to create content. So it was just me creating a whole bunch. If anything, this has helped me delegate more than anything else in my leadership, is to say, man, I am tired and I need you guys to help me. And so she's running that, and we got a couple of our youth pastors at the campuses helping run content, make extra stuff. We started a Twitch stream, which is something I've been wanting to do, but I don't know how to do it. And then I didn't know this before, but 2 of our youth pastors are already doing it. And so I just said, here you go. Here's Sandals Church Youth Twitch. Now run it and make it great. And that's been really cool to see. And we'll probably keep that going even beyond all this stuff, because it's been a unique demographic that I don't think we were reaching before. Really upped our YouTube. That's something that we've been trying to like really navigate. YouTube is the new TV for Gen Z, and so trying to really do it. I think our digital team at our church said something that really struck me. We actually started it before COVID, and we're going to keep on this momentum that we have on it, because we really started navigating it probably like 2 months before COVID hit. And so we were at like 3 months ago, we're at like 3 subscribers, and now we're coming up on like 500, from like students and other people, which has been really cool. And the mentality there is like ministry is a service-based thing. And so you're giving people what they need. YouTube is content where you need to give students what they want. And so what you need to do is, what COVID has done is it's forced all of us to come up with all these fun bits and, kind of like the fun, like Jimmy Fallon-esque type games that we would play online that we put on YouTube. So you're giving people what they want, so you could slide in things that they need. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. And so that's been like the cool part. And I think it's something that we're going to continue. That's one thing we're going to continue to do, is that we're going to make sure that our campuses are getting together to create content that when we do start meeting, they could still play on a Wednesday night because it's a good or funny video. But then we're always pointing students back to our YouTube, where we have like sermon clips, or we have these things called real talks, where we're having round tables of the different youth pastors talking about real topics about like faith or wisdom or whatever, to kind of do a whole bunch of different things in order for us to just point students to, maybe they'll click around for a little bit,
Yeah. Any TikTok in there? Anybody?
I have a love and hate relationship with TikTok. I have been running it because I wanted to get on it, and I hate it. I don't want to, I don't do the dancing. I don't do that kind of stuff. Like, I just can't do it. And so that's part of this, the girl on our team, and she's going to help me pass that off to a couple other people who actually really like doing it. And so, we have it, it's there. It's actually done pretty well, to be honest with you. Like we've had it for like 2 months, and we have, I think we're coming up on like 1,000 followers on it. That's awesome. Pretty good, I think.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good.
And it has like, there's a couple of videos that I've gotten that have gotten a couple 100,000 views on it, which is kind of cool. It's went on like the For You page. Yeah. So that's a fun accomplishment. Never would I thought that I would ever want to do that. And I don't, but that's just where students are, and that's where we need to be. Yeah.
Is there anything else that, you're either going to keep doing that you started now, or that you did before that you might not bring back?
Yeah. Well, I think another thing that we'll keep is, so we typically in the past, we've recorded our messages on the stage of our largest campus, because that's where all the audio and video were. But we were just told a couple weeks ago that studio is staying. Like, that's going to be a permanent part of our church now. And so that we'll move, because we've been teaching on it. We'll move to doing strictly we'll actually be able to book that studio on Wednesdays because that's like going to be a youth day, where we could actually keep on doing the bits that we're going to film. We could have the stage look differently. It won't feel like it's only the main campus being represented. We can make it feel like it's a little bit more universal to all of our campuses and the sizes. So that way it doesn't feel, and we're not going to be preaching to a room that seats 2,000 people and no one's going to be in there. It's tough for us. So like that's going to feel a little bit different. So we're going to keep that going. We're going to keep the Twitch thing going. We're going to keep the YouTube content going, which has been really good. I think the thing that I think we're going to do differently is we're going to move all of our volunteer training to online. And so I'm in the process right now to begin thinking through that. Now that we have the studio, is we're gonna create a online course that when new leaders come on board, that they're gonna watch these videos of kind of setting the tone and culture from the very beginning. Because we're using we have what is it? UltiPro is a program that our church uses for like HR type stuff, but it has it has like courses in there that you could actually set up volunteers to with that plus like Google Learn, like classrooms or whatever, where we're going to have like courses where volunteers, when in this phase of our process, you watch this, this, and this. If you're in this phase, you watch this, and this. When you're about to lead a small group, you watch this video. And so we're going to pivot to that afterwards. So that's like one of the bigger things and kind of like tasks that we're going to take on. When it comes to that.
Have you had to do, or have you done any training during this time with volunteers?
You know what, we did I wrote up a document that we would I gave to our leads at our campuses that would in turn do it with the volunteers about like, what does digital ministry look like right now? What are the wins during this time? You know, how do you not be discouraged in this time? Because you're going to start to see, especially as the shininess of online have gone down. And so we've done a couple of things, but for the most part, like, I think the best thing that we could do right now is what we're about to do is give them a break.
It's true.
And so, but yeah, that's one of the big things that we weren't doing before that we're definitely going to move to post this. Just realizing how do we train our people if this were to happen again, hopefully not, that how can we I told our team the biggest win for us right now is one, if we don't lose any leaders, and then two, a bigger win is can we onboard leaders during this time? Can we recruit? And so, but how are we going to do that? And that's what kind of like, man, we need to move our training to like solely online.
Well, and once you create it too, I mean, the way you're talking about it, like it's on demand training. Well, then you create that one time and everybody gets to use it.
It's set and done
on their own schedule. They don't have to show up at a certain time, a certain place, and all those other things. We started to do a mix of things online. Like we had done, we used Trained Up, which is just an online platform for like volunteer training for things like that. So we hadn't expanded to everything, but like new small group leaders, there was training in there for that. Our student pastor actually even kind of took the student ministry handbook, so to speak, and put that on the online version. Now there was still a handbook, an actual handbook that you could read online or whatever. And we did one live online training, like a webinar, kind of thing a couple of years ago. And I think that was the first time our volunteers got a sense for like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. Like, I think some of them were really skeptical at first, but then, being able to be at home and it was 7:00 or whatever time we did it. And, there's a few of us on there together. So we tried to make it fun and interactive and interact in the chat, like all the things we're having to do now, and it was good. And I pictured even then that, maybe our strategy would be a mix, but like you're saying, it does make you, a lot of things are feeling like now, well, why isn't that just online? Like that, maybe it's not even a mix. Maybe that is where it lives, with an occasional exception or something here and there. That makes a lot of sense. What else? Anything else you're thinking about changing, keeping, getting rid of, or dreaming about in the future?
I think one of the things that we're going to, we're thinking through summer camp. I think that's kind of like the biggest.
When is that? Like, when do you have to make a decision?
No, it's already decided. We're not doing that. Okay. And I think like the camp that we're going to made the call. It wasn't us. And so, not that it makes it any better, but our communication was, we didn't do this, they did. And
it makes it easier. Yeah.
And so, we had, we're most likely going to be doing, if it gets approved, is like a fall youth conference. So in January this year, we did a youth winter conference. So like right before COVID hit. And it was just incredible. It was all in-house. It was done at the main campus. We busted in all the campuses. It was 3 nights. We had like 850 students come through across all the campuses. And it was a trend-setting momentum. Like that's our momentum was so high. And it was such a good feedback and response that we're probably going to do that for the fall as a replacement and for summer camp, and to try to gain some of that momentum again after all this. And so like, I'm excited for that. I think it could, if anything, like our church they were already behind it before. Like once they saw it, they were like, that was my first thing at being at Sandals, where this was like a big risk. This is my first big ask and thing that I was like, I think this is going to work. But they're like, we've never done anything like this. I was like, I know, but I think we can make this work. And, tech and worship and everybody's like kind of skeptical a little bit. And then they saw it and they're like, that was awesome. Can't wait for next year, And so I think we have a little bit of leverage to make that great. And to kind of navigate through that, which has been really cool to like see, because we're going to be doing that with our summer camp, kind of bring some of those vibes, because we're taking over the summer camp. We're not doing their program. We're doing their facility, but our program. And so that they're willing to see us do that kind of stuff. I think that's one of the bigger ones that I think we're kind of navigating through. Like summer camp's a big deal. And so how do you keep that going? That's a big one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I love a lot of things you're doing and the way you're adjusting to it. And, it is a lot to change now. You're like this central services programmer for student ministry or whatever. Hey, maybe you'll hand some of that off too. You're like, hey, you got this week.
Dude, I already have, man. Our next one here at the recording in like 2 weeks. I use like the DYM Sidekick app. I put everybody's name in there. And I said, all right, I'm partnering you guys up. So I'm calling 2 names. You got week 1, you're programming it. Week 2, it's you 2. I'll take care of the speakers, because summer camp was done. We're having all of who would have been our summer camp speakers teach
that makes sense.
all of July. And so like, I'll take care of them. You guys are programming, because literally my brain is mush and I cannot think of another creative thing right now.
Well, and you have a 11 weeks or whatever to go on that they have to go on to say, okay, we know what we're going for now.
Yeah, we set the tone.
Exactly.
Stay within this.
Yeah,
we're good to go. That's
awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for coming back on the podcast. How can people connect with you and Youth Ministry Hacks and all that?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Justin Knowles 3 is the handle. If you want to search the Youth Ministry Hacks podcasts, it's on everywhere that you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. And then, Sandals, if you want to follow our ministry, it's Sandals Youth on Instagram. That's probably the best way. And same thing with YouTube as well, if you want to see a lot of the videos and content that I was talking about that we've been creating and making. And so, thanks for having me on, dude.
You bet, man. It's good to have you back. Hopefully it won't be 3 years again next time. And hopefully
who knows what will happen.
Anything like coronavirus. Churches will be gathering in person and maybe this will be behind us in so many ways. That would be awesome.
For real.
But thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Nick.
Well, it was good to have Justin back on the podcast again. It's been too long, and I just think he has so much wisdom. I just really think he's doing a great job as a student ministry leader at his previous church and then now at Sandals as well. I love what he writes for Download Youth Ministry and the tools and things they create there. You certainly want to check that out. Here are a few action items I thought of coming out of that interview. One would be to hand something off that you're doing. So you heard Justin talk about, he's like become the central program director for all of student ministry and has done that all throughout COVID-19, but now he's starting to hand that off. What is something you're doing that maybe you wouldn't be doing if it weren't like it is now, if you were meeting in person and things were different? What is something you're doing that you could hand off though? It's not something you have to keep doing. It's just, it's played out to where you're doing it. What if you handed that off? And then the other action step I think of is to get leaders connecting with students. I mean, that matters more than anything right now. Most students are at this point, if you're listening to this when it comes out, or certainly later, they're tired of Zoom calls and different things and school and just all of that. What are ways that we can connect with them that aren't any of those other things? They aren't programs, and we can make a connection there. And then the third action step I thought about is, and we're doing this at our church, is to create a new summer plan to pivot again. I mean, you had to change things with COVID-19, but now it's summer. And like I just said, students are weary. Students have not kept a momentum that maybe you had or maybe you never had when you kind of shift gears into this model that you're in now. But summer's a perfect time to change that up again. And certain churches are gathering in person again now, or maybe there's some kind of in between where you're not having full services in person, but there's some things you can do in the middle with smaller gatherings. What is a way that you can pivot with student ministry for summer specifically and take advantage of that? All the links and notes and all that are at nickblevins.com/episode 194. Be sure to check out nickblevins.com/huddleup for the Huddle Up tool and how you can communicate with your volunteers in one central hub with accountability and safety built right into that. Next week on the podcast, we're going to have Gerald Fadiomi back on. He's released a new book all about navigating adversity and battling anxiety. You're going to want to hear that for sure. So be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll catch you next week on the Family Ministry Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.